Donald Trump will be our next president. He won the election, and we must all be willing to work together for the common good. Having fought through the headwinds of the first Trump administration, the General Assembly and I took proactive steps to plan for the potential of a second Trump presidency and protect our residents from the damage that it may attempt to cause.
The hand-wringing and all is expected, but I think that this time around, President Trump and his new administration are going to use every leverage that they have to try to turn this country around and to enforce the mandate that he was just given. We'll see what's going to happen, but I think it's a great time. I think this is going to be a very, very good time for America, and I look forward to the next 4 years.
That's former, soon-to-be, outgoing State Representative Dan Caulkins, a Republican from Decatur, and Governor J.B. Pritzker yesterday, separately sharing their thoughts about the outcome of Tuesday's election. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Be sure to get the daily podcast anywhere you get podcasts, Illinois in Focus, and wake up with us weekday mornings here with America's Talking Network Live. All right, so yesterday, of course, was a news conference Governor J.B. Pritzker held that was the first news conference after Tuesday's election. And, he had some opening statements. The Lieutenant Governor, Juliana Stratton, also shared some thoughts. But here's primarily what the governor had to say.
Donald Trump will be our next president. He won the election, and we must all be willing to work together for the common good. And I'm here today to remind people that no matter the storm that we face, Illinois will always strive to make you welcome and safe and protected. Chaos, retribution, and disarray radiated from the White House the last time Donald Trump occupied it. Perhaps this time may be different. But if it isn't, Illinois will remain a place of stability and competent governance. Illinois will continue to be a refuge for those whose rights are being denied elsewhere, women seeking reproductive health care, immigrants searching to work hard for a better life, LGBTQ Americans looking for welcome and protection, and people with disabilities whose civil and human rights are under attack.
So again, Pritzker laying out all of the different groups he says are under attack by a Trump administration in coming to the White House. And he talked about, possible actions that the state's still controlled by Democratic supermajorities in the legislature. Democrats control all statewide constitutional offices like governor and treasurer and attorney general. So are we going to see some things that Democrats are going to pass during the veto session to deal with what they see as a threat from Donald Trump?
Over years past, we've thought a lot about, what happens if the administration in Washington changes, if the tone changes, what would have a negative effect on Illinois, and how do we shore up and make sure we're protecting people here. Yesterday, I had a meeting with my senior staff to talk about exactly this. Indeed, I talked to some other governors around the country about the things that they're looking at doing. And so we're gathering, I would call it a list of things that we may need to address. Maybe not during a veto session, but maybe. It can be done in the new year. There's time to do that. You can imagine what all of health care, reproductive rights, you can go down the list of, there are areas where I think, you can imagine the people who woke up on Wednesday morning and saw the results, if they didn't already see them on Tuesday night. There are many people whose lives and livelihoods are at risk, and there are many people who cried at the result because they know what impact it may have on their families. So think about them.
So again, Governor Pritzker laying out some of his concerns and what the State House may be able to do to push back. We'll hear more from the governor in a moment, but I connected with State Representative Dan Caulkins yesterday. He gave himself term limits. He decided not to run again for the State House, but he's still there for veto session, and he's still there for lame duck session. And his reaction to Tuesday's outcome nationally of Donald Trump getting the popular vote in the Electoral College and both chambers of Congress signifies to him a major shift in the political landscape.
The Democrats are infighting now, pointing fingers. It was Biden's fault. It was Obama's fault. It was this fault. It was that fault. No, the fault is the agenda of the last 4 years of the Democrat Party and how they've gotten away from representing the ordinary working class people. You look at the bubble around Washington, D.C., Virginia, and those people have no clue what we go through here, in our hometowns. And so they have this woke agenda, and they perpetrate it on the rest of the world, particularly rural America. And we finally, after 4 years, got an opportunity to tell the Democrats we've had enough. And if I were a Democrat in Illinois, protected by this map even, I would look at the results. I would look at what happened in Chicago. I would look at what happened in Will County, Cook County, or in DuPage County with the Trump effect. And if I were Tammy Duckworth, Senator Duckworth at this point in the minority in the Senate, faced with the 60 votes that it takes to break a filibuster. And if she wants to try to stand in the way of President Trump and the Republicans' agenda, I see President Trump coming to Illinois and campaigning for her opponent in 2 years. I think that you saw Senator Coons from Maryland start talking softly about the agenda and about what, we need to work together. We need to find stuff. I watched your interview with LaShawn Ford, another far left Democrat in the Illinois House, start talking about, well, yeah, we should be working with the federal government and ICE and deporting these illegal criminals that are in our communities. That's unheard of. So we'll see what's going to happen. But I think it's a great time. I think this is going to be a very, very good time for America. And I look forward to the next 4 years.
So again, Caulkins talking about the political shift there. Interesting. He's looking forward to the next election. And Tammy Duckworth, mentioning her. Let's take a look at what Tammy Duckworth had to say. As deeply, deeply disappointed as I am by the results of the election, make no mistake, my Democratic colleagues and I, unlike many Republicans after the 2020 election, will uphold the will of the people, fulfill our constitutional duty, and do our part to ensure peaceful transfer of power. Vice President Harris should be proud. Goes on to talk about, party loyalty must never be take priority over oath. But she also goes on to talk about sympathizing for the millions of Americans who are distraught by the knowledge that Donald Trump will soon be president once again. To each of you, Duckworth said, please know that I am as dedicated today as I've ever been to doing absolutely everything in my power as a United States Senator to defend our rights and our freedoms. And you can read the rest there if you're watching live. So clearly, the political prognostication here from the corporate media, really, and the pollsters, doesn't seem to have hit the nail on the head. But one thing that is obviously clearly a concern is grant dollars. Because, listen, Donald Trump campaigned on mass deportations of violent illegal aliens and also to end sanctuary cities. Illinois has a sanctuary cities and is a sanctuary state where law enforcement's prohibited from working with federal authorities to enforce immigration law. So how is Trump going to get a state like Illinois to essentially reverse its immigration, the fostering of undocumented migrants? It could be through withholding certain types of grant dollars. That's something that Pritzker said in general terms they're going to fight back against any efforts.
On the first question, to the extent that these things are nonpartisan grants that are decided by independent groups within the agencies, which happens for most grants, it would be illegal for the Trump administration to stop those grants from flowing, and so we would take action if we saw that happening.
So again, Pritzker talking about taking action if the incoming Trump administration does something with the grant dollars. More from the governor on that.
Any political actions that the president takes, I think, will be, work to his detriment politically, and I think that to the extent that they break the law, because politics in many cases can't be imposed upon things that are due to the various states. So I feel, reasonably okay about our ability to withstand anything that the Trump administration brings to us, but I can't predict the future.
So it's going to be interesting to see what the next 2 years looks like, because Republicans are going to have control of the Senate and the House. Congress controls the party purse, or not the party, the taxpayer purse. So are we going to see some policies come out that restrict the grant dollars for certain things if states don't go along and help enforce federal immigration law? When it comes to the transportation grant dollars the state gets, Pritzker says he's confident those are fine.
Again, sorry, just to be clear, the federal infrastructure dollars, again, are decided on an apolitical, non-political basis. That's how they're supposed to be decided. And indeed, we've, trust me, I've, contacted lots of people in the federal government that I know, elected officials or, appointed political officials, to make sure that they know what Illinois needs. And I can say, for certain that, the independence of those divisions of the agencies really are making the decisions. And we've been very fortunate because we are at the center of the supply chain for the nation. And so we've received a lot of support. Indeed, we're one of the largest recipients of transportation-related infrastructure dollars.
So again, the governor fielding questions yesterday, pretty wide-ranging news conference with a variety of different questions. But back to Republican State Representative Dan Caulkins, he said, listen, whoever's in power of the White House has the ability to usher through their agenda, just like the Biden-Harris administration's done for the past 4 years.
We've seen how the Biden-Harris administration used the federal government to further their agenda. We watched most recently the reaction in Western North Carolina to the disaster, to the flooding, and how they drug their feet with FEMA and response, and it was up to, as opposed to what happened in New Orleans or Houston and some other disasters. This is the last administration, the current administration, has shown that our government can use its power, the administration in power can use the levers of power to enforce its agenda on the states. And the Democrats shouldn't be surprised when the Trump administration uses the same levers, the same leverage to make sure that the agenda that President Trump was elected over, even in the popular vote, was elected to pursue. So I think the hand-wringing and all is expected, but I think that this time around, President Trump and his new administration are going to use every lever, every leverage that they have to try to turn this country around and to enforce the mandate that he was just given.
So again, Caulkins sharing his thoughts on what's going to happen over the next 2 to 4 years. But also, we've got another election coming up in 2 years, believe that or not. And it just so happens to be a gubernatorial election. Yesterday, the governor was asked about a possible third term for governor, or what about setting things up to be a presidential contender in 2028?
As you know, the work that I do now as governor is work that I love doing. And there is, in the wake of the Tuesday election, I think I think back to my first days in office, my first 2 years in office, where Donald Trump was president, and we had to defend Illinois against an awful lot of policies that the Trump administration was imposing that we needed to make sure we were addressing. And so I think that work is going to continue. And I don't have anything to announce today, but I promise you, Mary Ann, you'll be among the first to know if I have something to announce about running for re-election. And I have no plans for anything else.
No plans for anything else. Well, we'll see. Obviously, a question that he's had to answer time and time again about his political future and if he is indeed going to possibly run for the White House in 2028. Of course, already hearing things about, California Governor Gavin Newsom trying to set the stage for a similar type of, maybe Josh Shapiro, Pennsylvania Governor. It's going to be an interesting ride, and we'll be here for all of it. And also, I think that it's going to be crucial for you to follow along here with Illinois in Focus Daily, because, quite frankly, I think Illinois is going to be among the fulcrum of showing the stark difference between the federal policies and the policies of states controlled by Democrats. So fascinating stuff ahead. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. We'll be covering it all here as we like to do with Illinois in Focus Daily. Get the podcast where you get podcasts, and join us each and every weekday morning here with America's Talking Network.